Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome back to Characters Explained, a series where I cover characters from the game Battle for Neighborville, to ultimately decide if they're worth trying. And in today's video, we're covering the second half of the AI duo, that being Wildflower. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. So for those of you who watched my TV head video already, get ready to see me cover almost the exact same points for Wildflower as I did for TV head, as these two characters are very similar. So similar in fact, that I could genuinely tell you the amount of differences they have in their kits on one hand. Want to hear it? Sure. Wildflower has 35 ammo for their primary, while TV head has 25. Wildflower's third ability, Boom Bloom, doesn't sit on the ground for a couple of seconds, while TV head's microwave dinner does. And finally, both of their drones work slightly differently as well. And there you go. That's basically all of the major differences that actually affect gameplay. There's more subtle ones, but realistically we'll probably cover those later if they really mean anything. With that being said, I'll still use a normal format for this video moving forward, so let's begin. Wildflower is a swarm character, which means they're at their best when they're in a group of AI or other wildflowers. Wildflower themselves has 100 HP, and their primary, the Stinging Petal, deals 11 damage with 13 damage as a crit. Their RPM is 284 and they have 35 ammo, like I said before. They also have a melee attack that deals 50 flat damage, and before you ask, yes, it's as janky as Chomper's hit detection up close. Fun. Jokes aside, they have a pretty decent primary and melee attack, and that powerful damage is only amplified by the HP buffs they get when they're near AI and or other wildflowers. Basically, for those unfamiliar with the idea, Wildflower gets armor for each teammate they have near them. The exact numbers are 25% for one teammate, 35% for 2, and 45% for 3 and beyond. Pretty nice if you ask me. Alright, now let's move on to their abilities. Starting off, we have Wildlife, which is essentially a tactical insertion from Call of Duty. Basically, when you place this pot down and you get vanquished, you can respawn at the point where the pot was placed down. You're given very temporary immunities, so enemies camping your pot can be dealt with if you have good instincts. It's overall a pretty interesting ability. Next up is Weed Out, and this is the single most unique part of Wildflower's kit compared to TV Head. TV Head's drone is a Yeti Imp that prioritizes speed, and it chills whatever enemies it hits. Wildflower's drone, on the other hand, does something a little different, as it isn't as fast, but it does have a higher jump, which means you can get to higher terrain much easier with it. But besides that detail, the drone is the same as the Yeti Imp one. On contact, it'll deal 110 damage to whatever it hits, and it'll also leave behind an effect that mirrors the chilled effect, where it'll temporarily leave the hit target slower for a few seconds. Overall, it's not a bad ability at all. Finally, we have Boom Bloom. I had already mentioned what makes this one different, but I'll go over it in more detail here. Boom Bloom makes Wildflower shoot an explosive flower that deals 75 damage on impact to whatever enemy it hits. This is different from TV Head's variation of that ability, as that one takes longer to activate. Regardless of how you feel on both abilities, I think most of us can agree that this is overall pretty good. So that's Wildflower's kit. Nothing too crazy, but then again, we've already covered TV Heads, so the surprises aren't as surprising here. And I think that goes double for the upgrades, so let's talk about them. So like I had said before, if you watched my TV head video already, then you pretty much know what to expect from here on out. I don't have anything new to add for most of the upgrades here, so with that being said, let's cover the upgrades we have to choose from. First of all, Flower Food should have an honorable mention here, as it's one of 2 upgrades in the entire game that is flat out unusable. It's interesting, but overall not really worth more discussion. Now let's move on to the actual usable upgrades, starting with their base upgrades. First off, we have Deep Roots, which is basically just a Stampede upgrade from TV Head. Same as that one, this one just allows you to get more armor per teammate when you're around them. And the new numbers are 30% for 1, 50% for 2, and 60% for 3 and beyond. Good stuff here, it's pretty useful. Next up is Soiling Yourself, which makes you explode whenever you get vanquished. The explosion itself does decent damage, but you know, the Dandelion drone exists for a reason, and frankly, you have better upgrade options for 2 points. So let's move on. Petal Powered Punch is next, and this one is pretty good. Basically, you can now stun enemies whenever you melee them, and it's a simple idea, but it works surprisingly well, especially if you don't get screwed over by bad hit detection. Like I said before, pretty good upgrade. Finally, we have Head Protection. And my honest thoughts on this one? Not a fan. Basically, you increase your base health to 125 with this upgrade, which is good, but it costs a lot of points, 4 to be exact. And if you ask me, those 4 points can go to much better offensive upgrades. so overall I'm not really a fan of this one. But if you like it, more power to you. Now let's move on to the ability upgrades, and we'll start with the wildlife ones. We have Wild-Eyed and Pottery Power here, and neither are particularly great. Wild-Eyed tracks the enemy who broke your pot for a few seconds, and Pottery Power just gives the pot more HP. I don't really like either upgrade, but then again, I don't use this ability too often, so maybe I'm missing something here. Next up are the drone upgrades, and these ones are much more interesting. Starting with Hey Over There Fever, this upgrade tracks any enemy you hit with a drone for a few seconds. Unlike Wild-Eyed, I can actually see this one being pretty useful, especially if you're going for a stealth build. But that's not the real highlight here, oh no. That would be Flight of the Dandelion, and this upgrade increases the running speed of the drone. It's good. Very good. So good, in fact, that I would argue that this is better than Yeti Imp, and that's really saying something. Speed plus good vertical movement equals destruction. Finally, we have the sole usable upgrade for Bloom Boom, that being Seed Dispersal. And oh my god, this one's actually different than the TV Head equivalent, wow. This upgrade gives you 2 flowers to use, and unlike TV Head's upgrade like this, these are separate. That means that you can use these at different times if you'd like to, and that alone makes this upgrade really good. It's useful for many more situations than dinner for 2, I'll tell you that much. So that's all of Wildflower's upgrades. While the package might be similar to TV Heads, there's enough differences here to make Wildflower stand out, even if most of the differences are just the goofy names. Regardless, I think it's time we move on to the example builds. Starting out, we have the build I use, and this one's slightly different than my main TV Head build. Here we have Critical Blow, Flight of the Dandelion, and Ready Up. The first 2 upgrades are here for fairly obvious reasons, but Ready Up is here for a slightly different reason, as this upgrade allows me to melee as soon as physically possible, which is pretty helpful for close encounters. On that topic, next up is a close quarters build, using Seed Dispersal and Petal Powered Punch. There's not much I need to add to this one, it's pretty self-explanatory. Finally, we have a supportive build, with Head Protection, Deep Roots, and Refreshing Revive. If you want to be pretty annoying with this one, simply spawn a bunch of AI and revive everyone you can. It works surprisingly well. So now that we've gone over pretty much everything with Wildflower, let's finally answer the big question. Is Wildflower worth buying? Well, I would say yes. I'm pretty much going to parrot what I said about TV Head here, but overall both characters are similar, yet good in their own unique ways. If you have the patience to grind coins out for buying these characters, I'd say you should go for it. They're pretty fun to play. And that about does it for me. Thank you for watching until the end, I really appreciate it. I know recently my uploads have been all over the place, but soon I'll be releasing normal videos again. If you guys like what you saw and you want to see more content like this, then subscribe. It helps me out a bunch. Let me know how you feel about Wildflower in the comments, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.